Good afternoon. A lot of environmentalists here. Glad to see that. Before we get started with the program, I just wanted to introduce Jill. Jill is the director of the Senior Center, and I just thought I'd let her introduce herself.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, we haven't had a program this big since pre-COVID. So I applaud all of you for being interested in this awesome topic. I'm also wondering if the Fitchburg started in, say, City of Fitchburg versus Senior Center, if you all would be here. So just so you know, the Senior Center offers schools programs. Thank you to Linda, who is a co-facilitator with our Active Women's Group, for bringing this program to this community. So anyway, if you didn't sign in on your way out. It's wonderful to see all of you here. There's our Senior Center newsletters back there, and that's it. Thanks for coming.
And we are out of handouts.
Oh, I'll get some copies.
I'll give you the originals.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Okay, just to make sure that we're keeping on track, Claudia Guy is the environmental engineer for the City of Fitchburg, primarily focusing on recycling, solid waste, and stormwater projects. She received her degree in civil and environmental engineering at the University of Virginia and spent 13 years working in the environmental field. So she brings a lot of experience in the area. She really enjoys working with residents, her words, residents who are interested in improving their environmental footprint. Doesn't that sound good? And she wants to share information which would help them move toward becoming more sustainable citizens. So that's you, the more sustainable citizens. Joe Spares, the municipal account representative for pelletary waste systems. He joined the company after working for Motorola, the Douglas Stewart Company, and Power Districts, and received a degree in Administration of Justice. I love that, Administration of Justice. He said he enjoys being part of Pelletary, a company that genuinely cares about being a good environmental steward. So this is being taped for Fact TV, just so you know, and I'm going to turn it over to Claudia and Joe.
All right, thank you so much, Linda, for inviting us here to talk to this group of environmental stewards. As you said, it's really exciting to be here. Today we're going to talk about recycling myths and realities in Fitchburg. I'm Claudia Guy, the environmental engineer for the City of Fitchburg. And again, this is Joe Spare. He is our municipal account representative with Pelletary Waste Systems. Just going over a brief outline of what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start off the presentation with history on pelletary. We're going to show you a video of the Kip Street station, which is where your recyclables go to be sorted after you put them in your carts and Pelletary picks them up curbside from your home. We're going to talk about some recent improvements that were made to the Kip Street station. Where does recycling go after it's sorted at the Kip Street station? And what do we do differently here in Fitchburg? We're going to have a little demonstration on typical household items and the best way to recycle those. We're going to talk about the Fitchburg recycling drop-off site, which is just down the street on South Fish Hatchery Road, and what you can find there. And then we're going to talk about some additional resources. At the end, we will have questions, so if you have questions throughout, we ask that you jot those down and keep those for the end. We do anticipate that a lot of your questions will be answered as we go through the slides, but if you still have any lingering questions at the end, we are going to stick around and try to answer those questions for you. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joe to talk a little bit about pelletary.
Okay, thanks, Claudia. How's everybody doing? I am not a very quiet person. I'm ecstatic to see this amount of participation. These are my smiling eyes. I'm smiling right now, like genuinely smiling. So thank you. Thank you for coming. Just a really quick overview of the Pelletaries. Whether you know much about them, they are a family-owned and operated company that started 42 years ago. You can see in the picture over here, this here is Tom Pelletary. He's the one who started it all. Just real quick summary of that. Tom genuinely started the business out of his basement. He got a truck, he went out and got his first couple accounts. We'd get up in the wee morning hours, go collect trash, come home, shower, get a suit on, and go sell more. Fast forward 42 years, now his 3 children, Danielle, David, and Tim Pelletary, are running the company that now consists of 60 plus trucks and just over 100 employees. So all that in 42 years, great family, great company to be a part of. We take our core values very seriously. Obviously, like we said in the nice intro that Linda gave, being good stewards of our environment is very important to us and why we love these conversations on how everybody can be more sustainable. So Kip Street Station, you probably would not notice if you had driven past it. It's not exactly right off the beaten path. It is just off of Stoughton Road and Femrite. There's a little bit of a industrial park back there, but that's where it's located, so you can see your recyclables don't have to go across the country to be processed. It's fairly local here. Again, it's owned and operated by the Pelletaries. It's been open for about 10 years now, and that's where all your recyclables are transported to once they leave that nice cart at your curbside. And since I can't pile you guys all in my 5-passenger Mazda, I don't think that's gonna happen. What I wanna do is bring Kip Street to you. This video is available on our website. I'll warn you, it's about 7 minutes, but it's 7 very fascinating minutes, and it's genuinely pretty much what you would experience if you were to come take a full tour of Kip Street Station.
Have you ever wondered what happens to your recyclables after they're collected from your home or business? Please enjoy watching how Pelletary Waste Systems separates and prepares your recyclables so they can be shipped to end users to be made into new products. As recycling trucks arrive at Kip Street Station, they back into the facility and unload recyclable material onto the tipping floor. The loader then piles up the recycling. When the system needs more material to sort, the loader will grab from the pile and load it into the first piece of equipment, the metering bin. The metering bin's function is to produce a constant flow of material, which is essential to allow the sorting equipment to function properly. After the material is metered, it goes up the first conveyor and drops onto the pre-sort station. At the pre-sort station, we have several quality control people who are pulling out recyclable metal objects like pots, pans, and toasters. They're also pulling out recyclable bags of shredded paper. While pulling out these good recyclables, they're also looking for material that is not supposed to be in the recycling. Ropes, water hoses, large non-bottle plastics, trash, diapers, loose plastic bags, and clothing are sometimes found in the recycling, but are not recyclable in this system. Contaminants will often cause good recyclables to become unrecyclable, and that material will go to the landfill. It's very important to only put approved materials into your recycling container so that good recyclables are not contaminated. As material leaves the pre-sort station, it goes up another conveyor and drops into the old corrugated cardboard, or OCC screen. As the cardboard moves across the screen, it will be touching multiple discs, allowing it to stay on top of the screen and move forward. Smaller recyclables will fall between these discs, drop down, and move on to the next piece of equipment. Under the OCC screen is a debris roll screen, which acts like a glass breaker and breaks bottled glass into quarter-sized pieces. The broken glass then falls through the debris roll screen and goes into a glass cleanup system that removes pieces of metal and other small non-glass items. After the glass and cardboard is removed, the recyclables move on to the newspaper screen. The newspaper screen uses the same concept as the OCC screen. The steep angle uses gravity to force three-dimensional objects like detergent bottles to bounce backwards and off the screen, while two-dimensional newspaper rides up and over. The third and final screen is the polishing screen. Small papers move up and over the screen onto the paper sorting platform. Gravity will cause three-dimensional materials to bounce backwards and off the back of the screen where they're conveyed onto the next process. Just after the polishing screen, we have a quality control optical sorting machine. This equipment uses light and magnets to identify any metal or plastic material that is flattened enough to act like a piece of paper and remain in the paper stream. Once this material is identified, it is hit with a shot of air and removed from the paper stream so that it can go on to be sorted with all the other plastic and metals. At this point, we have a quality control station to look for any paper that has gotten through the screens. Generally, this would be three-dimensional paper products like phone books, balled-up paper, or juice and milk cartons. These materials are pulled and sorted. Now that all papers have been sorted out of the recyclables, they go to the paper platform. There are several stations where people are removing contaminants, such as plastic films or trash from the paper. By the time the paper gets to the end of the conveyor, it will meet the paper mill's specifications. After all the paper products and glass have been removed and sorted, all that's left in the system is plastics and metals and other non-recyclable materials. A magnet removes all of the tin and steel cans. A second magnet system called an eddy current removes the aluminum cans. Since aluminum doesn't stick to a magnet like tin or steel, this piece of equipment spins a magnet extremely fast, and this produces a magnetic field that repels the aluminum cans, causing them to jump off the conveyor and onto their own storage area. After the metals have been removed, all that is left is number 1 through number 7 plastic bottles and trash that hasn't already been pulled out of the system. These bottles go onto our plastic sorting platform where robotic arms use artificial intelligence to target and pull number 2 plastics like milk jugs, laundry detergent jugs, and shampoo bottles. The bottles that remain on the line go to the optical sorter. This machine shoots a ray of light into the plastic and reads how the light reflects back. A computer analyzes the light and determines if the plastic bottle is a number 1 plastic or a number 3 to 7 plastic bottle. The optic system will then shoot a perfectly controlled blast of air at the bottle, which directs it to either the number 1 plastic storage area or the number 3 to number 7 plastic storage area. Non-plastic material does not have air shot at it and falls onto the residue conveyor, which leads to the trash. Before this material goes in the trash, we have our final quality control station. The robotic arm uses the same artificial intelligence system and is responsible for pulling out any recyclable material that was not properly sorted. Once material is sorted, it's stored in bunkers. The sorted material gets pushed onto a conveyor that goes into the baler. The baler will compact the loose material into a large brick-like bale that uses metal strapping wire to hold it together. These bales are stored in a storage area and ready to be shipped to an end user. A majority of our paper and cardboard goes to paper mills in Wisconsin and Indiana, where it is made into new paper or cardboard products. Tin and steel cans go to local metal recycling companies and are eventually melted down to make new metal products. Aluminum cans are melted down to make new aluminum cans. Our plastics go to processors that shred the material into flakes, which are used to make new plastic bottles or other plastic products like plastic lumber, landscape edging, and drainage tiles. The glass gets color sorted and melted down to make new glass products. Thank you for watching how Pelletary Waste Systems sorts and prepares your recyclables to be shipped to manufacturers so they can be made into new products. Remember to please keep contaminants out of your recycling so they don't contaminate the good recyclables.
It's a pretty quick 7 minutes, huh? Is that fun to watch? I've watched it multiple times because I kind of geek out over recycling and I like to show people exactly what happens. So, like I said, that is hosted on our website with a number of other resources. I won't get into that just yet because it's part of the presentation and I'm going to ruin the show. So you guys saw Kip Street. That video is not as recent as some of our improvements, which we actually just completed over the summer. So I want to tell you, that something that pelletaries do is continue to invest in the technology and invest in trying to capture as much of the single stream recycling as we can, because it's not a perfect system. It could always be tweaked and improved. So we recently added some technology to our system, and I think this was already in the works, but with so many people working and learning from home as a result of the pandemic and doing a lot of online shopping, we had a great spike in OCC, or cardboard. Whereas historically, a lot of these smaller cardboard boxes were not getting recognized and processed with the cardboard. which essentially turned them into an end-of-life product because they would be sent off with paper. So paper's turned into tissue. So you're not necessarily going to use a tissue and put it in your recycling. That would be a contaminant. So by capturing these smaller boxes, they're going along with the other cardboard OCC boxes for processing and then getting made into another cardboard box. So a startling stat that I always like to share is that cardboard is in such high demand and it's getting processed so quickly right now that if you were to put a cardboard box in your recycling bin today and we picked it up tomorrow, it could very well be delivered by Amazon next week. That's how fast it's going, that's how much demand there is, and we're happy to produce the clean cardboard that our processors expect from us. The other thing we invested in was in regards specifically to PET bottles. So what it didn't touch on there is that food residue, if you imagine a peanut butter bottle, a plastic one, obviously. So that residue, even when it's clean, there's always that like film because there's so much oil in peanut butter, which sometimes would confuse the technology from recognizing it as a PET bottle. So we invested in technology to make sure that we're capturing those PET bottles and keeping the residual trash down. So when I say residual, it means trash and vice versa. So that lowers the cost associated with trash because if it's trash, then we end up touching it again, putting it in a truck, bringing it to Dane County landfill, paying disposal fees, so on and so forth. So just wanted to touch on that. And then in addition, this is exciting news. I'm happy that I was allowed to share it. We actually received a grant from the Paper Cup Institute to implement a paper cup program, both hot and cold paper cups at curbside. And we hope to be able to offer that in 2022. So essentially what that means is your white paper cups that you get from whatever your local coffee establishment that you prefer is. I'm not going to promote one over another. I'm an equal opportunity coffee drinker. But those paper cups will begin to be accepted in your curbside cart, which is very exciting because historically they've been discarded as trash. So we forgot how much the presentation covered this. I will give you some facts about what happens to, or some facts and statistics on glass. We actually partner with Strategic Materials for our glass products. We got a very nice testimonial from them. I didn't want to put the whole thing in there, but I did take a quote out. They were praising us for producing the cleanest glass that comes from a material recovery facility in Wisconsin. And that's the reason why we continue to be able to send our glass to them. A statistic I would like to share with you specific to glass is that glass consists of about 20% of your recycling in a single stream environment. The other 10% is residual, so it's trash. It's stuff that's contaminated, or it's trash that accidentally got mistaken for recycling and thrown in the recycling. So that accounts for 30% of your recycling. Scary thing is not everybody takes glass recycling as serious as Pelletari's does, and they will accept glass, but they're not necessarily recycling it. So as I had mentioned, we use Dane County landfill exclusively here within Dane County. So that's a plus because we pay disposal fees and things of that nature, which a percentage of that goes right back into the county for upkeep of green spaces and local waters. A lot of people don't realize that. The other thing is since we use Dane County landfill, we know that they don't accept glass as an alternate fill or alternate cover. So companies that may own and operate their own landfill will seek DNR exemption to be able to use glass as an alternate cover in their landfill. So essentially they're accepting glass as a recyclable, but it's getting put in a landfill, which is really disheartening and just goes to show that we definitely are using your glass and turning it into more glass products. If you want to get specific, if you enjoy beverages from a New Glarus facility that bottles their beverages, chances are that glass came from us. Cardboard is straightforward. As they said in the presentation, it goes to Indiana and it gets made into more cardboard boxes, and I gave you the fun fact about how fast we're turning that around right now. And then plastics, I think we also touched on that in the presentation, but they get turned into, additional plastic bottles, or the thing that people don't realize is the darker plastics or colored plastics get turned into landscape edging and things of that nature. Bottom line is that we try to keep our carbon footprint minimal and keep our processors here in Wisconsin, or at least within the Midwest, like we said, Indiana or Michigan. There's no sense in sending your recyclables halfway across the country. You're burning natural resources by doing that as well. So we try to partner here locally and keep a lot of things here within the state. Oh, sorry, don't want to gloss over that. The Carton Council. So we'll get into cartons later, but have a very long-standing relationship with the Carton Council. We've been working with them as long as I've been in the company, so 25 years. Nobody's going to stop me on that. I have you? 20, okay, maybe. Well, anyway, so they said that we are one of the top companies in the industry, which is again another flattering praise from one of our partners. Sorry, I was zoning out on this part. Wish cycling. So this is kind of fun. This is a part where Claudia is going to give you a little bit of data on wish cycling and touch on that, but you'll have to put up with me again later, so don't get too excited.
All right, thank you, Joe. So wish cycling, how many people have heard this term before? And can anyone define it for me? Anyone want to volunteer to define it? All right, go ahead.
It's when you put stuff in your recycling because you wish it was recyclable, but it's really not.
Perfect. That is 100% accurate. So just as the lady in the back said, it's when you recycle an item, you put it in your cart because you wish it were recyclable, but it's actually not. And this is a problem because if you recycle an item incorrectly, it can actually contaminate our recyclable streams. And then it can cause, if our stream gets too contaminated, it can cause properly recycled items to end up in the landfill along with the contamination that has been put in there. So when in doubt, we always encourage people to check if an item can be recycled. Sometimes there's a whole long list of items that can be recycled in your curbside cart. And there are some items that can't go into your cart, but you might be able to recycle it a different way. So that's something to double check. If you're not sure, and you don't have time, it's better to put it in the trash than to wish cycle it into your recycling. And that leads us to contamination. Contamination continues to be an issue in Dane County. It's currently in the mid to upper teens in terms of the amount of weight that goes to our material recovery facility versus what's actually recyclable. So somewhere in the 15 to 18% range is where we currently are in terms of things that go to pelletary that are not recyclable and end up in the landfill. And they have a great resource here on Pelletary's website that talks about contamination concerns. So if you were interested in checking that out, I would encourage you to do that. So curbside recycling, I just kind of wanted to talk really briefly. You can find this list on Pelletary's website, also on Fitchburg's website. It's essentially paper and cardboard, plastic bottles and containers, and the way that I always tell people to remember if a plastic is recyclable, if it has the recycling symbol, which looks like a triangle with a number in it, then it's generally recyclable, but it has to be a cup or container. So if it's something that's flexible, but it might still have that symbol, it's not recyclable in this process that we're talking about here in Fitchburg. And then Pelletary will also accept #1 clamshells. Another thing that's particularly brought up here is if you have plastic bottles that used to contain motor oils or gasoline, that should not be put in the recycling stream because that will contaminate it. That should just go into the trash. And then of course, metals and glass is recyclable, glass bottles. Something that a lot of folks don't know is that metal pots and pans are recyclable. So if you put a metal pot or pan in there, you can recycle that. Curbside, small metal appliances like toasters or blenders can also go in there, as well as plumbing fixtures, valves, that kind of thing. All right, so now we're going to do a demonstration, and Joe and I are going to switch off on this demonstration. But we have here a recycling container, and you can see that In this case, we have chosen to show a demonstration. If you do bag, Scott's telling me to hold it. If you do bag your recyclables, be sure to put it in a clear plastic bag. And in this case, we just have this container as the trash container here.
Before we jump in there, Claudia, really quick, because I don't want to forget, there was actually a specific list of questions that we were going to cover. And for anybody who was not in attendance, I'm sorry, when we did the run through, I didn't do this part, so I'm throwing her a curveball. But if you guys came for this specific information, I don't want you to leave without it. I think it's a good point to talk about it. So bags, that triggered my thought. Do bags gum up recycling machinery? Loose bags do. It's just, you saw all like the turning pieces, any loose bags, hoses, things of that nature, really they gum it up, so to speak. That can create downtime, which means then we have to make repairs. It slows us down. Does anybody have any idea how many tons of single stream recyclables we sort in a day? Just a wild guess? A million tons?
No, I thought pieces.
Oh.
Okay.
I was going to say, that's something to shoot toward.
1 ton. 1 ton.
Somewhere between those two. We currently are sorting 200 tons a day. We have the ability to sort probably got another 50 tons, but we're sorting what's coming to us. You know? We hope that people continue to increase recycling because we have the capacity to sort it. The other thing, does food residue make recyclables unfit for processing? I think we covered that. It was a question that was part of the agenda. But yes, food residue does make that, and we're going to cover that here. So we'll kind of gloss over that. Should you bag recyclables? It's a matter of preference. To bag or not to bag has always been kind of the thing. My suggestion, well, we require clear plastic bags no larger than 32 gallons. My suggestion is if windblown debris is a concern or an issue for you and it becomes consistent, bag your lighter things that are going to blow around when they're dumped from the truck. We can control it to an extent, but when the winds are clipping, 30, 50, 60 miles. I mean, when it's windy, it's windy. We can only do our best. So maybe take your heavier glass bottles and don't bag those. And then lighter items like papers, any paper type item, or even if it's aluminum cans, something like that, you can go ahead and bag those. Shredded paper needs to be bagged. We're going to cover that too. I'm sorry. Shredded paper does need to be bagged, and I'll tell you what else can go in shredded paper in a moment. Can you recycle all paper even if it's wet? Wet's technically, water's a contaminant. We'll just put it out there. Water contaminates a number of things, papers being one of them, cardboard being another. We just try to minimize any sort of water getting into the bin, whether it's by leaving the lid of your bin open or by not emptying a water bottle all the way and putting it in there, even if it's got the cap on with the water in it. Eventually it's going to get compressed in that truck and could break open, and then not only is it contaminating whatever was near in your bin, but in that entire load, depending on the volume of water. So it's most favorable to have dry paper. I'll skip over that because we're going to go over the small pieces. Books, coffee cups, other paper products. Paperback books and clean dry paper are acceptable. A hardcover book, if you really want to recycle the paper, just take the hardcover off. All the paper that's in between the hardcovers is good to go. The hardcover, unfortunately, is not. You can just throw that in the trash. Coffee cups, no. There's so many different material coffee cups. I would assume you're talking like ceramic cups and stuff like that. But as I had mentioned, we are going to be offering the paper hot and cold cups in 2022. You asked how to decode symbols. I won't jump ahead. We'll cover that. What types of plastic and paper are non-recyclable? We kind of covered that. We just essentially, you want to look for the triangle that's made of the arrows with the number, and we'll cover on what those materials are made of. And then what actually gets recycled. We touched on contamination. For a full list of accepted recyclables, Claudia kind of touched on that. It's available on either website. And then, do you really know the proper ways to recycle? I think we do. Wouldn't you agree? Well, it seems like we got a decent program dialed in considering the technology we've invested in. But yes, we are always trying to stay ahead of best practices. If we find something that's consistent, it's all about educating our consumers and the general public. And if you ever have a question, we have a fully staffed live customer service team sitting just miles here from here in Madison. Give us a call. We're happy to answer any questions. It's part of our job. And we're happy to do so. You don't necessarily have to call the city. And then I believe these Q&As will be sent out, I believe. Anybody who is calling us who wasn't able to attend here is getting those answers. So I was giving you what people who weren't able to attend are getting. So let's go ahead and go over best practice.
Great, thank you so much, Joe. All right, so I just wanted to start with a couple items here. This is an example of a peanut butter container. It's made out of glass. This particular one is made out of glass. And one thing that I wanted to mention is you can see that it does have food residue, so just try to put some warm water in there, put the lid back on, shake it up, clean it up. You don't have to get in there with a sponge, but if you do, shake it up with some soapy water, then it should be ready to go. Thank you. So this is just a peanut butter container. If you have glass containers with a metal lid, you can go ahead and put the metal lid on for recycling, because if the metal lid is on, it will get separated. As you saw, it gets separated with the glass. The glass gets crushed, and then after the glass is crushed, there's a next part of the process where the metal lids are taken out. Question back here?
I usually leave the lid off because if I have used that warm water,
Sure.
I don't, because I watched another clip online a while ago from your company that spoke of that water can contaminate your machinery as well.
Sure.
I usually leave the lid off in a hope that maybe the water will evaporate.
Yeah, and that's a very, sorry, go ahead.
Is that okay to leave the lid off? Or you're recommending to put the lid back?
Yeah, so it's
Okay to leave the lid off?
It's preferred actually that the lid is put back on, just because this is going to be pretty two-dimensional, and that might go into the paper stream, and it could, there is a process where it gets removed from the paper stream, but it's more likely to contaminate the paper stream and very unlikely to contaminate the glass stream.
Okay, so it's really the lid.
Yeah.
So if I don't have a lid for the glass jar.
Oh yeah, then you can just put it on.
Jars for just personal stuff at home.
Right. So if you have a glass jar with no lid, you can put that in.
Okay.
But if it has a metal lid, then you can put that on, and that's preferred.
Got it. Thank you.
Did you have a question?
A milk jug, plastic milk jug with a plastic top.
Yep.
What?
So you
Put on the lid?
can put the lid back on with
Yeah,
that. You should, because otherwise that piece of plastic won't get recycled.
And also damages the machine. I work for recycling center.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, okay.
and that's one question. People always have to put the lid on. Otherwise, take your lid and put it in a bag and throw it in the recycling.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll kind of touch on the various lids, tops, etc. that should be kind of segregated. The other reason we want milk jug lids and container lids that are not of glass, if they're plastic, to be kept on is because then it kind of maintains the integrity of the container and holds the air in and keeps that three-dimensional form so that it, as you can see in the video, it topples back down. Gravity will do its job, it topples back down. Whereas if the lid's off, then the air is able to be pushed out and make it a flatter product. So it's accepted with the lids, it's preferred with the lids. If you lose the lid, I wouldn't say don't recycle it. If you just don't have the lid and you still want to recycle it, still put it in there.
Right.
Another question I have, getting back a little bit to the bag, you were using a clear bag. In our recycling, we're told by pelletary we can't use a black bag in recycling because computerized will pick it out.
Well, not only that, it's more for the health and safety of our employees. So as you can see in the video, there is a human element. We take recyclables from a number of different places. We get recyclables from hospitals, for instance. So if we can't, there is a bag breaking process. So it's not like every bag that comes through is getting manually handled by one of our employees, but it's the black bags that are probably the most difficult for our bag breaking machine to open. So they will make it to the human element of our line. So they're not gonna grab that and rip it open because, as I said, you get contamination from a hospital and somebody accidentally throws a syringe in there, so to speak. Like, that's just bad. So if they can't see it, they won't rip it open. It gets taken aside, thrown in the trash. The same goes as for white bags. You can use tinted transparent bags. So if you can't find clear ones, or you happen to have bought a blue or a green tinted one in the past, that's perfectly acceptable. They just have to be able to see what's in the bag.
I want to make sure that I understand this correctly.
Sure.
So that I can be the best recycler possible. So like a plastic gallon water jug, like a purified water that you can buy in the store, you want the lid back on that and you don't want that crushed? Because sometimes I stand on them and crush them, but then the opening is oblong shaped and the lid won't fit back on again.
Yeah, I wouldn't crush anything. Whether it's a can, a bottle, keep everything in its 3D form because it will be recognized accordingly in our system then.
Okay.
The other thing with the plastic lid, if you have a very small lid, you can't put that in separately because it's not considered a container, cup, or clamshell, and that will get sorted as trash. So if it's not on a bottle, it will get sorted as trash, as contamination. So, question over here.
Well, what about paper labels?
Paper labels. And we'll get to that specifically. So, oh, sorry, you mean on the container. So, yeah, so any sort of label, you can just leave the label on, that's fine. Yes, so on cans, that's fine as well.
And we rinse the can, right?
And that's fine. If there's like a little bit of water residue, that's not a problem. If you're putting in a like water bottle, and the water bottle has like an actual amount of water that you can shake and you can see that there's water in there, that's what we're more concerned with. If it's like a little bit of water film, that's not a problem.
And now let's get through the rest of the presentation and if you guys can please remember your questions for the end.
So rinse it out. You don't need to wash it like thoroughly, but if you just rinse it, that should be plenty.
Yeah, you'd be amazed what a little hot water and just a little shake can do. Yeah. And we're not asking you guys to throw it through the dishwasher. It's just getting rid of some of the residue. I feel like we will cover a little bit more of the questions in regards to best practices. So let us get through the rest. If you remember your question at the end, we're happy to take them. But just in case they get answered during our best practices presentation, I feel like there will be a number that will.
Yeah, if you have a question on one that we're currently talking about, feel free to ask. But if you have a question about a different item, let's hold that to the end because it might get answered. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put that with the lid on and the label on into the recycling container. And then what do people think about this? This is just a container that held berries. A plus. A plus. So you would go ahead and take this little piece of plastic because that's not recyclable. You would put that into the trash. And then you would look and you would say, okay, that's a clamshell. So I'm looking to see if that's a #1 clamshell. And I can read here that it is a #1 clamshell. So that would go ahead into the recycling container. All right. What do people think about this product here? Yes. Do you have a question?
About the clamshell and clear plastic.
Yes.
Oftentimes it's very difficult to find the numbers.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, is that part of wish cycling, or if it's a clear plastic container of that nature that you can make the assumption?
I always make sure to identify it, and then a lot of times I'll be using the same products over. So now at this point, if I have a berry container, I'm not looking every single time because I've looked in the past. But if it's a new product that you're not quite sure on, I would always look for the symbol. Good question. All right, so moving on to this brownie container. The only thing I would add is that I would break it down first. So go ahead and break that down so that's two-dimensional. I sometimes crimp it just like that so it stays a little flatter. And then I go ahead and I put that in my recyclable container. What do people think about Post-it notes and receipts? This is a trick question, and some people know the answer. I'm very impressed. So generally, if you have a piece of paper that is smaller than an envelope, a regular standard-sized envelope, then it will, if you just put it in loose like this, it will be sorted as trash, and it will be a contaminant. So if you do want to be a super recycler and recycle these, you have a couple options. You can either take that and put it into an envelope and recycle it that way. Or if you're shredding a lot or you have a lot of small pieces of paper, you can put that into a clear or an opaque plastic bag. This is just an opaque plastic bag. And either way, you can put it in an envelope or an opaque plastic bag. And either way, you can put it in your recycling container. If you put it in this way, it will be sorted with the equipment, and if you put it in this way, it will be sorted. There's a manual element where someone will go and pull that out to be sorted. All right, I have a metal tin can here, or I don't know if it's tin, but it's a metal can, metal container that had probably holiday cookies at one point in it. What do people think about this one? Recyclable. Recyclable, absolutely. So we do accept metal pots and pans. I would put this in that category, and that can go ahead and go in here.
Claudia, can I jump in?
Yeah.
If there's ever any question, just test it with a magnet. Yeah. As you saw in the video, the metals will get dragged out with our magnetic system. So just take a magnet and see if it sticks. If it does, just toss it in there.
What do folks think about this? So this came off of, it's a little, a glass oil container, and then you pull the lid off, and this is a little piece of plastic, and it does have a symbol on it. The symbol says 4. So what do people think about this one?
It's too small.
Correct. So in our system, this would be trash because it's not a cup container or a number 1 clamshell. So this would not get sorted properly, and that should be something that you put in your trash. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you to do a couple more items.
Okay. I'm going to steal one of her pieces, though. I'll probably move through mine a little quicker. Yeah, I don't have that many things in here. So. Yep. Do I need to take this off? No. Yeah, you just throw it in there, right?
Don't crush it.
Don't crush it. Keep it just how it is. I mean, if you want to be a rock star, like put a little water in there, swish it around, empty it. We're not saying things have to be air dry. We just don't want a lot of liquid left into things. So, I mean, if you give it a good shake, chances are by the time it hits our line, that water will be pretty dried up. Minimal traces are okay. We just don't want it spreading to the other items around it. I got the easy stuff. That's a carton. No, not styrofoam. This is a paper carton. This is good. You don't have to. You could leave it in this form, just like these. Any cartons could be in their original form. I'll do this one first. How about this? No. And why not? You guys are going with, you stole my thunder. So this is something I wanted to get into a little bit. For one, this is not a container. It's not a plastic bottle. I didn't check, but I don't even think it's stamped. But yeah, it's a hybrid material. It's got clear plastic film and it's got foil, which brings me to a point I want to make. So let's say you got a great big Amazon box. and you're like, yo, my garbage or my recycling's full, I'm not gonna put out an extra bag. I'll just start throwing all my soda cans and water bottles and papers and plastics and everything in that Amazon box. And then when my container's empty, I'll just throw that whole box in there.
Oh.
Do you guys think that stuff's gonna get sorted accordingly? Yeah. You don't wanna mix commodities. So you don't wanna put plastics inside of a cardboard container or glass inside of a cardboard container. You wanna keep your cardboard separate, your plastic separate, your metals together and separate. So, it's the last one. No, one more after this, because I'm gonna steal one of Claudia's. So this is, as is. She's like teetering on super recycler. How about this? You got it. So things like this, or your favorite soda pop top that, you know, you pop the top, or just, if it's a twist off, if you're classy like me, you put those inside the can, you squeeze the top. Squeeze it shut so that that's not coming back out. If you're like really strong, you could almost make it V-shaped and like you're rock solid at that point. But the reason we ask you to do that is because, I'm gonna cut myself one of these times. If this goes in your recycling cart as is, it's gonna contaminate the, bingo. It's gonna go in the paper stream, it's gonna contaminate paper. Twist off bottle tops, those get in the glass, if you're interested in that at all. But if they're inside a larger container and it's crimped shut and they all stay together, it's a happy marriage, they all go onto the metal processing and you're good to go. And then the one I was gonna steal because I like to test you guys. If you wanted to be a super recycler, and while this nice white envelope is a nice paper product, white paper is good paper. If you really want to be a super recycler, what would you do to this prior to putting it in your single stream bin?
The film.
So the plastic film, it's really easy to remove. And with paper, even if it's not, you just tear that square off and discard that as trash. Same thing for like your elbow macaroni boxes, the really fancy ones that have the window on the front. That film is really easy to remove. Like if you're gonna flatten the box anyway and do a little construction prior to throwing it into your bin, it's like a square of glue that keeps that on, and you could easily tear it off, throw it in the trash, and that's super recycling. So just wanted to touch on that. And I think Claudia has just a couple more items. Any questions, this thing specific to what I presented?
I guess when you had like those little like the pull tabs that you had like in the oil or something, would you be able to put a bunch of them in like a plastic water bottle since it's plastic on plastic and throw them in, or does it not even?
No, I mean, because those are going to be different material than the PET. So I'll get into the numbers of the plastics and what they mean, but yeah, it's not necessarily going to be the same kind of plastic that we would like on the water bottles. So metals are good, you can put those together, but plastics, we haven't really come up with a way that's 100% effective to be like, yeah, just mix and match the stuff. The caps can stay on your water bottles, but other than that, don't throw anything extra.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Is anyone talking to manufacturers of packaging to just put N on non-recyclable and R for recyclable?
Well, it's kind of a loaded question because there's various materials and various packaging. We're just seeing a lot of cardboard right now. Cardboard is pretty foolproof. As long as you're breaking it down and you're taking out any of the non-recyclable, like small packing peanuts, those things drive me crazy, but my kids love them because I don't know if you guys have noticed, they're like water soluble now. So like you fill something with water and throw them in there and they disappear. So it's really cool. And that's why items like that are not accepted with styrofoam, because there's always a question on whether it's a genuine styrofoam product or if it's a hybrid type product.
I just wanted to expand on that because whether or not something is or isn't recyclable can be dependent on where you live and what the material recovery facility can take. So for example, in other areas of the country, you might not be able to recycle a carton. So that would be really difficult for them to say one way or another that it is recyclable. It says recyclable here, but in some parts of the country, that's not true. You have to know specifically what your area is able to recycle. And then there are things that are recyclable, but not through your curbside collection. So for example, car batteries are recyclable, but you have to take that back to a motor shop to recycle those. Yeah, so I think that would be just really difficult to do practically. Go ahead.
Is Madison the same as Fitchburg?
So Madison does also use pelletary, so it would be the same things that can be recycled. Question over here.
You did not take the paper off the can, the label. I don't have to do that because I've been doing it.
Okay.
It's appreciated if you do. It's just not necessary. It's a step that we don't necessarily need you to take. You're more than welcome to leave those on.
Yeah, K-Cup coffee pods, the little plastic containers, they've got a number on the bottom. Recycle?
I think those are too small.
Yeah, it's not technically a container.
So that's a great question because they actually call them cups.
Right.
But when we're talking about cups for this purpose, it's the drinking cups that we're talking about.
Recycle them in a separate little bag, plastic bag, would that make them acceptable?
Not through.
No, really the only thing we want in bags is paper, because it will get sorted, the small piece of paper or shredded paper. And if you're bagging all recyclables, I can double check on that, but I'm pretty confident that that's not something that should be going in the single stream just yet. It is very small. I mean, because one thing that we had an example of, and I'm gonna jump ahead, but like if you got like a dry powder that you have a scoop, I mean, that's about equivalent in size, except it has a handle. And that's also something, it's stamped with the number 5, but we're just not saying to put it in your single stream.
Question, gentlemen? Sorry.
Maybe it's just me, but with that envelope thing, a lot of the junk mail I get, it's got applications for credit cards and all that stuff. I tear them in half. Is that a no-no or?
No, it's fine.
Doesn't matter?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, if you're tearing them to the point where they're smaller than 4x4, that should go in your shredded paper bag. Yeah. But an envelope that big, you should be fine.
Question? I've been told that I should not recycle shiny magazines. Is that not a problem?
So I guess it depends on what you mean by shiny. So for example, wrapping paper, sometimes the wrapping paper is shiny, like it almost has like a foily characteristic to it, and that should not be recycled.
Well, I just mean
but if it's
magazine that comes in the glossy.
So like are you thinking like National Geographic kind of has like a glossier cover, but it's not, I've never heard that.
I mean, magazines is part of our list of accepted recyclables.
Yeah, that should be fine. I think that might have been someone thinking about, like if you have, again, wrapping paper that's very shiny, almost metallic-y shiny, that's not recyclable. If you have a card, some like birthday cards, for example, might have like a really glossy, or they might have glitter on it, that's not recyclable. But what you're describing, just a magazine that has a shinier cover, that should be fine.
What about like typing paper that's stapled? You need to take the staples out?
The staples are fine. I believe if you have a clip, those should be removed. I'm talking about like the black clips. Binder clips, thank you. Yes, binder clips should be removed. I think paper clips are small enough that that's fine, yeah. Yes?
In the holiday gift wrapping, you say no foils.
Yes, no foils.
Tissue paper, I was told that that's not recyclable either. Is that true?
Yeah, tissue paper is kind of like tissue in general. That's kind of an end-of-life product. That's something that's already been recycled from other paper. Once it gets recycled down to that state, it's not like cardboard where we can recycle it multiple times.
So, no tissue paper.
All right, so let's just get through a couple more things in our demonstration here, and then at the end we can ask if there are any items that we missed that people are still curious about. All right, so next we have some packing material here. No. Easy, too easy. Okay, so this is a container. The container has a number 2 on the bottom. How do people feel about that one? That's good, yes. So I will go ahead and empty it, and we'll put that in. So this was a container that contained powder at one point, and as Joe kind of alluded to, we had an example of a small little measuring cup here. It says number 5 on the bottom. This one's no again, even though colloquially we would call this a measuring cup. That's not what we're talking about when we say cups are recyclable, so this would go into the trash.
Or you can reuse it.
Or you can reuse it, yeah.
I think that actually was labeled as like half tablespoon or something. So I mean, you could always use it for another method of measuring.
Yes.
All right, so plastic bags that have been put in plastic bags. Wow, this really is a good group here because this is pretty new. So this is new as of the summer, that this is no longer accepted in our single stream recycling. It was contaminating the process, and then also the folks who used to take this overseas. China's no longer accepting this filmy plastic, so it's not something that we have a market for anymore. Oh, thank you. I'm testing you guys. Thank you very much. Yes, so some grocery stores will accept that.
The reason that we're not recycling them is that it can't be put in your curbside cart, because even just water, food contaminant, they're just very easily contaminated. The markets are so hard, it's so hard to find a market for those right now, that the ones who do take it are very, very picky on it being segregated completely from any other recyclable. So when you bring it to a grocery store, chances are they store it, they make it in a nice pretty bales, and they send that directly to the processor. It doesn't ever touch any other items.
Yeah, like that, maybe they would throw it in.
Question.
I hope not.
Just real quick, since you gave the example of all those plastic bags inside of a plastic bag, what about if they're all loose? Do we still just put them into the regular trash?
Anything that is not a cup or container or clamshell that's plastic should go in the trash. So yes, okay. Yep, loose or not. As Joe was saying, like, it would be even better to reuse these, or take it to your grocery store, or try to, stop using these altogether and just have a reusable bag. That would be even better. But if you do have them, this is an option for how to get rid of them.
Do you know which grocery stores will take those bags?
I think so.
Yeah, a lot of them do. You've probably walked past them without noticing. They're usually by the entrance or exit, but there's just a dedicated bin. Yep.
So it sounds like Pick and Save and Hy-Vee in Fitchburg. Yes.
Downstairs at the entrance.
Say that. One of our student volunteers from Verona High School was in environmental classes, so she started it last year. And it was all going great, and then Dane County, Madison, and Fitchburg stopped. So our whole foyer was practically full of these plastic bags. And so now I have this huge bag of plastic bags in my garage, because now I have to downsize it so I can take it at night. So if anyone wants to help us deliver these bags to the area grocery stores, we're looking for volunteers, because I'm not going to keep it up, and if it gets too much, we'll probably stop collecting.
Okay.
But I hate to do that. It looks like they're hard to recycle.
Yeah.
So I was talking to both of them beforehand to say, what should we do? Should we stop collecting them, or should we keep collecting them? So if anyone wants to start an environmental recycling program for the seniors, then let me know.
All right, there you go. So this is just another number 1 clamshell. I think the only point I wanted to make with that is go ahead and leave the labels on. That's fine. And then you can put that in your recyclables. Plastic silverware. Good, very good. So it's not a cup or container or number 1 clamshell, so that automatically goes in. And that was everything that we had for our demonstration. So we'll go ahead and take the 3 or 4 questions here. Go ahead.
When you shred your paper, some of them allow you to shred credit cards. So is that okay? You put that in a clear plastic bag and
So, no, not through this. So what they're asking for is for you to put shredded paper into a clear plastic bag and put that in. If you put in like a metal or a plastic credit card, that would be a contamination of that.
okay.
Yeah.
If you have a metal pan and it's got a handle of another material and it's coated with Teflon or something, can you still recycle that? Should you take the handle off?
If you're able to take the handle off, then you can, well, actually, I don't know.
I would just say you could throw, it's all part of the process. You throw metal pots and pans in, like she said, if you're able to easily remove it, that's favorable. But that's also like small metal silverware. We'll take small metal silverware, but if it's got like a plastic or a wooden handle on it, I would just say find another purpose, bring it to a donation center, or give it to somebody.
Okay. Great, thank you.
What about restaurant food containers that are two lids that do a lid that snaps on is from a restaurant?
So the styrofoam ones? The plastic. Okay, so are they number one?
No. For example, like a noodle company. It's a dish with a snap-on lid.
Oh, so you're talking about, it's not a clamshell, but it's yeah. So that would just, sure, so that would just be recyclable per the number. As long as it has a number on it, then you can put that in. Yeah.
And make sure it's not like one of those byproduct bottoms with a plastic top. If it's all plastic, it's good to go. And make sure it's clean. Sorry, always clean.
Go ahead. Yes.
What about cardboard? Can cardboard have any moisture on it at all? Like, are you supposed to keep your cardboard separate and outside the container versus inside the container with all your other things that might be a little moist?
If it's residual, if it's just a small amount, then I would say that's fine. Typically, if it's oil, for example, if you have like a greasy pizza box, then you should like take the lid off of that, and that's recyclable, and then the greasy piece is trash. But if it's just getting, you have this and you rinsed it off and there's a little bit of water on that and that's getting on your cardboard, that's just going to dry up before it even gets to pelletary. So that's fine, yeah. Yes.
Where can we recycle flashlights and all the other little implements that use batteries?
So the flashlight itself would just be trash. If you want to recycle batteries, you could take that to Resource Solutions. And maybe
Home Depot also recycles.
Oh, Home Depot, that's true too. Yep, so there are a couple options. And that is, so for anything that you think is recyclable but not in your cart, I would encourage you to look at, and we'll get to it later, but there are some recycling guides that are available that will tell you where you can bring those. Yes?
Do I have to rinse out my soda can?
No, that's fine.
Make sure it's empty.
Okay.
Yeah, make sure it's empty, yes. Go ahead.
How about, can you go down as small as like a yogurt container or one of these small 4-ounce?
Yogurt containers are fine. That's probably the smallest that that would be still considered a cup. Yep. And then last one in the back over here. Oh, sorry. This one over here.
Yes, I understand your focus on like food and the papers and things like that. I'm a person that has moved a lot, and I actually enjoy moving. And when I move to new place, I get plastic furniture. And then when I move again, I have to do something with it because I never take it. And is any of that recyclable, like the smaller parts? And if not, where can a person take that?
Plastic furniture, is that what you said?
Yes.
So I would encourage you to donate that if that's still in usable condition.
Sometimes, if you put too many books on it, it'll crack.
Oh, sure, yeah. I don't think that's recyclable. I think that's just trash at that point, yeah.
Would that be the same for like plastic carpeting?
Carpeting, that's also trash. Well, Carpeting, you might be able to take that to Dane County landfill and recycle that as construction debris. But I don't know that one offhand. We can look that one up.
The same thing go for like plastic that you put down on your floor, like when you're bringing stuff in and out.
That's definitely trash. So that would look more like this. Any sort of filmy plastic is trash. Yep, no problem. Okay, and then since I said you were the last one, we'll go with you.
Address label.
What was that?
Address label, sort of.
Oh, so the ones that are just stuck on envelopes, you can leave those on.
No, I mean, you're using them, yeah, if you want to get rid of a whole sheet of them.
Oh, that's a good, because you're saying like, there's kind of like a plastic piece behind the sticker. I think the plastic piece is trash, right?
I would just toss those.
Yeah, so that's trash, sorry. All right, so.
Styrofoam food containers.
Styrofoam,
Trash, aren't you?
that is trash. I'm looking at Joe. We're getting into the ones that I'm not quite as sure on, because if I don't use them that often, I haven't looked them up necessarily. But that's trash.
So styrofoam in no way, shape, or form is accepted in the single stream recycling facility.
I have a hard one. Trex decking material. What? Decking material.
So that is one that I would encourage you to look up. I'll just show you guys real quick how to do that. It's here. So you can go to our website. For the ones that are not the typical ones, there are two forms that we have this available. One is a PDF, which you can find here. Let's see. Our recycling guide looks like that. There's a PDF available online. There's also a hard copy. I had a couple hard copies in the back, but if those are gone and you do want a hard copy, there are also some available in the front of City Hall in those areas where they have different handouts. So you can look there. And then on the website, there's also you can look up various products here. This recycling guide has the same content as the PDF recycling guide. It's just some people prefer to use this little app instead. So we can just test it real quick. So what were you saying? This is decking material?
Trex, which is a plastic thing.
Plastic decking. Dun, dun, dun. And that particular one doesn't come up, so I would encourage you to call and then we'll look it up for you. But I don't have that available right now. And we're going to move on with the presentation. Sorry. If there are more questions at the end, we'll go ahead and continue with that.
It's almost done.
Yeah, we are almost done. So we will have time for questions at the end as well. Okay, so just a couple recycling tips. Again, we already covered this. If you do want to bag your recyclables, be sure to use clear or transparent bags. Clear like this is great. Also, if they have a tinted color but they're still clear, that's perfectly fine too. As Joe said, if they are in a bag that you can't see through, that will likely be sorted as trash. If your container still contains food or liquids, that's not acceptable. So if you have a Gatorade bottle that still has Gatorade in it, you need to empty that before recycling. Otherwise, it's not going to be sorted properly, and it can also break open and contaminate the paper stream. Do not flatten or crush plastic or metal items. So as we were talking about, just leave those in their three-dimensional form. But for any sort of paper, sorry, this keeps on moving on me. For any sort of paper or cardboard, you would want to flatten those because we do have that, sorry. For paper or cardboard, those you do want to be two-dimensional. And if you do have a recycling cart and it is generally just full of trash instead of recyclables, if the operator of the truck is able to identify that, then they won't pick up your recyclables. Probably more likely than not, it would get picked up and it would unfortunately contaminate the recycling stream. Okay, so we actually had this is a shorter little video about Fitchburg's recycling drop-off site. So these are some items that are recyclable in Fitchburg that's outside of your typical curbside recycling. So this is if you wanted to recycle some additional things here. So it's just south on Fish Hatchery Road, and it's 2373 South Fish Hatchery Road. Welcome to the City of Fitchburg's recycling drop-off site. Today we're going to take a tour of the site and go over what this facility has to offer. The site is open daily and is intended for use by Fitchburg residents only. The area is video monitored 24 hours a day. Items which can be recycled here include used motor oil and oil filters, yard waste, scrap metal, white block polystyrene, and cardboard.
The City of Fitchburg provides free mulch and compost for city residents. The mulch is made from Christmas trees that have been chipped and trees that have fallen on city property. The compost is composted on site and is made from the yard waste that is dropped off and is available for residents to pick up and use in their gardens and yards.
This is the used oil and oil filter section. This is where you discard your used motor oil once you have changed the oil in your car. You also can discard your used oil filter here as well. The used oil goes into the tank behind me. You lift up the lid, you pour your oil in. Once your container is empty, you place it in the dumpster next to the used oil tank. You can also place your used oil filter in the labeled container that is next to the tank as well.
Yard waste, which is composted on site, is comprised of leaves, grass clippings, hay, straw, and twigs smaller than a thumb size can be dropped off here. Anything larger is considered brush and can't be dropped off. And make sure to reuse your bags and dispose of them properly.
This is a scrap metal section. Before you dispose of any scrap metal, make sure you remove all non-metal parts and dispose into the dumpster.
Fitchburg residents can also recycle polystyrene in this white container marked white block polystyrene. And it's important to note that when you are recycling it, you want to check all of the bins to make sure it fits. And if it doesn't fit, then you can break it down and dispose of it. It's important to recycle polystyrene because we don't want it to end up in the landfill where it's not going to break down. And we have a local company that melts it down and uses it for picture frames and other home goods. It's also important to note that packing peanuts are usually not polystyrene and can't be recycled here.
This is a cardboard recycling section. Before you place your box in the container, make sure the box is flattened. Place in the container. Do not place your box outside of the container. You also might consider reusing your boxes for shipping and moving.
Not all items are appropriate to bring to the drop-off site. If there isn't a designated area for collection of the item, it should not be brought to the site. Please check out the city's recycling guide to determine the best way to donate, reuse, recycle, or dispose of unwanted items. Recycling gives us all the opportunity to conserve resources, protect the environment, and be good neighbors. Thanks for watching, and see you down at the Fitchburg Recycling Drop-Off site.
So if you have not been down to the recycling drop-off site and taken advantage of that amazing service that the city offers you, it's a great option if you're filling up your cart too quickly, and not something that every community has. Like I said, we really applaud them for offering that to the citizens so you guys can continue to be sustainable. I'm gonna zip through this. Bottom line, you have resources on Fitchburg's website. Additionally, you have a dedicated website at pelletary.com dedicated to the residents of Fitchburg. You can get FAQs, you can download your service calendars, get recycling info. If you steer away from that part that's specific to you guys, we do have an entire page dedicated to recycling tips. Similar to what we did here, by commodity, and they're usually a minute or less. So if you're curious, like, am I doing the right thing with my glass? Am I doing the right thing with my plastic? What should I do with my envelopes? You'll find it there, and I believe there's also on numerous pages, but there is that full Kip Street Tour presentation. The video that we did in the beginning is available on our website if you thought it was so cool like I do, and want to show it to your friends, family, loved ones. Definitely encourage you to share. First, before anybody raises hands, questions, if you have any additional, I'm happy to hang out. I really want to extend a sincere debt of gratitude for your time and attention and your genuine interest on being better recyclers. I think it's amazing. It seriously makes me happy. So I want to applaud you guys.